me back up a step here. Before the Kilominx, before the collection was completed the way that it was here, which again would have stopped if everything proceeded as planned, I wanted to find a 2-layer dodecahedron, and I didn't know where one was, and I didn't even know what that was, or what that would entail. I had a 2-layer, I had a 3-layer of everything, 4-layer, 5-layer, everything was fine, but I did not have a 2-layer dodecahedron. And I figured I had to find that if I'm going to complete the entire collection. So I searched and I bought what I thought was an actual 2-layer dodecahedron, which was this guy. I figured, okay, it looks a little different from the rest, but it is a dodecahedron. It's got 12 sides, so this must be the 2-layer version of that. So I put that nicely into here and figured that was fine, and my collection was complete. What I didn't realize at that time is that this was not the 2-layer version of this. This was a dodecahedron, but it was not the Kilominx, which is the actual completed dodecahedron 2-layer version, which is corners only, no edges, no center. But I figured it was this one. So I bought it, figured my collection was complete, and I can be done. And I figured I'd just go ahead and do a scramble of it too. So I scrambled here, went over here, and did what I thought to be was a scramble of a 2-layer dodecahedron. And scrambled it here. And I figured the other thing that I needed to make sure was that I could solve every puzzle. There would be no puzzle that I would have that I couldn't solve, or wasn't able to solve. So I thought, okay, here's a scrambled state. We'll just go ahead and put this here, that's okay. Put this here. See if I can put these in. Maybe turn this over to here. Didn't seem too incredibly difficult, and bang. Okay, solved. And I thought, okay, well, this was pretty simple. Really, it didn't take too much. It was kind of an intuitive solve. The others had a lot more complexity to it. But I thought, okay, well, the 2-layer, that's more like a kid's puzzle. It wasn't really something that was supposed to be particularly challenging. So it was really for the purposes of completing the collection, and I was done. And that's when I made the other key mistake and the other key discovery here. I made an accidental move. Instead of turning it 180 degrees, I made a 90-degree turn, and just before I can turn it again, I went like this and was shocked. And I said, oh, did I break it? I don't think so. What I did is I appeared to have done a move that shape-shifted it. And just to be on the safe side, I turned it again and realized that, yeah, that's the situation. I had bought a completely different kind of a puzzle. I bought a shapeshifter, which was not part of the collection. And at that moment, I figured if I could, I would have sent it back, because that's not what I wanted. But here it was, I was going to send it back. But at the same time, even though I really didn't want to go through full scramble, I couldn't live with the notion of not having a puzzle that I couldn't solve, of having a puzzle that I couldn't solve. I had to know that I could solve it. So I figured, okay, I'll just retrace my steps a little bit, bring it over here. What was it that I actually did? Turn it. And I found that the more I was trying to solve it, the worse it was becoming, until eventually it got scrambled to a point where I simply couldn't bring it back. And this threw me into a state of incredible cognitive dissonance. Not only had I not successfully found the proper 2-layer version of the dodecahedron, but I had a puzzle that I don't know if I could solve. And there's nothing that I could find online or anywhere that could help me with this. Even if I'd bring it back to the shape, I could bring it back to the native shape, I still had a hard time. I couldn't put this blue with this over here. I couldn't solve it. So I'd re-scrambled it back, reduced it to the shape, but the shape didn't make any sense at that point. So here I was, and I was stuck. So what do I do? So I thought about it, I examined it, I went about it different ways, simply couldn't let it be unsolved. And then I looked closely at it and decided, okay, maybe I shouldn't be so afraid of the fact that this is shapeshifted. What exactly do I have here? And I decided that this puzzle didn't look too different from the 2x2 over here, in that I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I had 8 pieces here, 8 corner pieces that moved fairly independently of each other. Same thing here. I had 8 pieces over here. And I thought, well, maybe I should just look at it the same way I look at as a 2x2. And without having any consideration to the shape shifting, solve it exactly the same way. Let's say I looked at this as a whole side. It didn't make sense that this would be a side. It would make sense that this would be a side. That every colored face must be its own side. But let's look at it like this and see what happens. So let's see if I can apply two-layer philosophies to this. So to solve two-layer puzzle, what I was going to do is I was going to just try to match another edge corner up with this, another corner that fit the same color scheme. Was there a white and red? Well, so I looked and, well, let's see, here's a white over here. That doesn't seem to make sense. So maybe it's not a white and red, maybe it's a white and blue or something. Another white that shared another color with it. Well, we could try to put this white one in, and I'll do it the same way. We'll just move this up where it's supposed to be over here. All right, so here's white. So these two are fine. These two don't correlate, but maybe they don't have to. It's got to correlate with over here. So let's find another blue. The other blue, edge with the other blue color to it. Where is that? Well, there's another one right over here. So I'm just going to roll this in with RI, RDs the same way that I did with a 2x2. Like I've got these two pieces in. You can tell that they come in. So over here, although I just have one color guiding me, these are going to be guided by other ways. So I'm going to put this blue one up to here. RI, RD. So this was in. Now this color doesn't match with that, but that's okay for now. So let's find the other yellow one over here. So here's this one. So I'm just going to put this in the same way. And bang. Now when I did that, I saw something interesting. I seemed to be onto something because not only did all these colors match at this point, but it seemed like I had something fairly consistent. That when I put the last one in, it fit with the other colors. So I figured, okay, don't panic. We have this side here is correlated with this. And this is when I thought that maybe the internal structure of this is exactly the same as the internal structure of this, but these have been put in as different shapes. And that's why it's shape-shifting. I actually hadn't thought about it like that. I wasn't totally convinced that what I was doing was right, but I decided to keep my concentration, keep my perspectives bent, turn it upside down, and continue to do the same solve that I usually do. So the next step is to find the other corner that fits with the one just below it. Any one of these will do. So, okay, this will be fine. So I looked and I said, well, what belongs next to this? This belongs over here. So I'm going to do the same strategies where I'm going to keep this where it is and permute these guys around by using that same algorithm that I would do for a 2x2 if I wanted to keep this here and permute these guys around. So hold this in front of me and do my U, R, UI, LI, U, RI, UI, L. It was at its native shape, but I figured don't panic yet, don't do anything different, just keep holding to the plan. But I figured that this is actually where it needs to be. So this is supposed to be over here. I figured it's just rotated. Okay, what about this? Well, then this must be rotated, and this must be where it needs to be, and it made sense. So with shaking hands, I thought, okay, let's pretend like everything is where they need to be. They're just not rotated correctly. This is rotated correctly, and this is rotated correctly. So I'm going to do my RIDIRD move to bring this back into position. From time to time, I'd have to swap these two potentially. So I said, I'll give it a try. I wasn't too hopeful, I was very skeptical, but why not? So I'm going to do that until this is up against this guy over here. RIDIRD, RIDIRD, and I just kept doing it. I figured, what have I got to lose? What have I got to lose? Up and up, so that's okay. This is where it needs to be. This has to turn around, so we'll give it a try. RIDIRD, RIDIRD, and back to the native shape. Turn this around here, and aha! And then I was shocked. I looked at it, and I suddenly have this strange sense of inspiration that what I did is on a puzzle that I thought was completely different, made in a completely different way, totally separate from any other strategy that I might use because it happened to shapeshift. All I did was I skewed my perspective and looked at it as a 2x2. I didn't care or worry about the shape shifting. I didn't think about the color scheme like a 2x2. I just thought of the structure as a 2x2, and it solved exactly the same as this. So of course I scrambled it again and did it again and found that it was exactly the same thing and it was exactly the same concept. It was at that point that I decided to open up the door to other puzzles, others of different structures, others of different colors, that if I could solve them all the same way, if I can use the same strategies, then my collection can expand into something even more broad, but not have to think that I'm reinventing the wheel and solving new things. And I can explore some of the other kind of fascinating puzzles that I'd always looked at with a lot of interest. But this opened up the door to changing my perspective on what to expect with these puzzles. Now, I figured if I was going to start expanding things, I was going to look into some other types of puzzles that I was actually kind of fascinated with. I was somewhat fascinated with some of the void puzzles, the ones with holes in it. So here's the void Megaminx, the void Gigaminx, the void Petaminx. So we'd have our Megaminxes here, including the voids as well. Coming back to the cube, we've got our void 3x3 and our void 2x2, or the Never Cube. Here, and I started to get fascinated with more circle puzzles. So the circle puzzles were those that had the circle in the center, as typified by this. Now you know that there's a whole planetary series. This is a Mercury that's been modified to be a complete circle puzzle. And what's interesting about this is, once again, you can use similar algorithms to solve it. It lended that extra air of challenge to that. But there's the circle 3x3 and all the different variations, as well as the circle 4x4. Same kind of thing. Kind of a fascinating variation on the theme. Once again, showing incredibly good craftsmanship with that, of which there was the type 1, type 2, and type 3. The type 1, of course, you solve like doing a 2x2 and then just a 4x4 after that. Here, you solved it like a 4x4, well, like a 2x2 and like a 4x4, and then you have some extra issues that you have to do of bringing these back into place. And then the type 3, which is solved exactly the same way, where these tiny little corners don't really enter into the challenge of the solve too much. So putting them together over here, if I'm going to have a circle 3x3, circle 4x4, then of course one would want a circle 2x2. Well, this is the only one that we had for the moment. Wasn't exactly the kind of circle that I was looking at. This is more of a cross cube. But existing out there, of course, would be a circle 2x2, and that would be this fascinating guy over here. This, but for all intents and purposes, is a circle 2x2, and it functions as such as well. A, believe it or not, surprisingly challenging puzzle to solve. And all of these modifications were solved like a supercube, and what a supercube is it's the same thing, but center orientation means something. I have to bear in mind, if I'm going to solve a modification or a mod, which is basically taking a cube and modifying the pieces to take a different shape, I'd have to learn how to do supercubes. So I got one of these picture cubes here where center orientation means something. So I not only had to solve all the sides, but the rotation had to mean something as well. 4x4 with a 4x4 also. Then there's a 5x5, and a combination of a void and a circle. Hence this puzzle over here, which is a circle void puzzle. And not to forget as well the circle version. There's obviously different, this is the planetary version, however this is modded to have circles in every direction. So basically all of these move as circle puzzles. So all the circles are fixed over here, lending that much more of a challenge in this marathon solve. There's different planetary versions of this, of which you can modify it to make the circle, and to be honest with you, that's really all I wanted. As a matter of fact, if I were to hone in on the tetrahedrons a little bit, decided to do an interesting variation where we'll take the two-layer version, put a center in it, and get ourselves a Jing's Pyramorphix, which I found to be solved pretty much like a combination of the Pyramorphix and also this guy over here, a circle version of that as well. Very challenging series of puzzles. Really, again, what I was interested in is just the pure circle version of that, which I have here. But there's other versions, or not circles at all. You've got circles here, but no circles over here. This is the planetary series of crazy tetrahedrons. That's this, and then you have others that are variably bandaged as well. Well, after having done the two-layer version of what I come to figure out was a dodecahedron, I wanted to get the equivalent. This is to this as this is to this. So this also is a dodecahedron. Dodecahedron in the sense that you have a side over here that's just like a side over here. So it's not a three-layer dodecahedron in the way that a Megaminx is a three-layer dodecahedron. They're both three-layer dodecahedrons, but this one is a fully functional face-turning dodecahedron. This is a three-layer mod dodecahedron, more based on this mechanism over here. So this is to this as this is to this. This. Now understand, this isn't really like this. This is more like this guy over here. It's solved exactly like a supercube because center orientation means something. This can't turn by 90 degrees like this can. Well, this is the letters, but like this can, because you wouldn't know the difference. So it's really more like that. So the equivalent of the four-layer would actually be this. So we have a four-layer dodecahedron, and of course, if we're going to have that, what would be the equivalent to a five-layer? And that would be this guy over here. And what they all have in common is that it is a series that I wanted to complete as much as possible of shape-shifting dodecahedrons. And that's exactly what these are. They follow the same pattern, the same basic shape, where you can turn 90 degrees, and it just makes it a little bit more complicated, but you can solve it just like a four-layer supercube. And so too with this five-layer version, this giant of a puzzle. Once again, also three-dimensionally printed, but also shapeshifts. This was exactly the same concept that sent me reeling into this particular brand of puzzle, as I found that you can solve it exactly the same way. Is it possible to get dodecahedrons that don't shapeshift? And the answer is yeah, you can if you get what's called a rhombic dodecahedron. And that's where this comes from. Rhombic dodecahedron is the same thing pretty much as this, only it doesn't shapeshift. So if shapeshifting isn't your thing, then the specific properties and shape of a rhombic dodecahedron means that it need not shapeshift. I was going to have to get a four-layer rhombic dodecahedron. That it's the same basic shape over here, but they don't shapeshift. Just like that, if shapeshifting isn't really your thing. Well, if you're going to get that, you might as well get a two-layer version over here. Two-layer version rhombic dodecahedron. Same kind of thing, same basic shape. Do we have a red? Yes, we have a red over here. And you can scramble it just like a two-layer, but it does not shapeshift, solved pretty much the same way. This harkens back to this guy over here. You can see the similarities here. This one being the shape-shifting kind, and this one being the non-shape-shifting kind, but the solve is exactly the same. Despite the fact that they look a little different, the properties are a little different, the solve is the same. 2, 3, 4, if I'm going to have that, then I should have a five-layer rhombic dodecahedron. Same kind of thing, just a little bit more complexity, but solved pretty much the same way. This is, of course, made by my contact over here. So you can see the similar structure. Of course, if I'm going to do a five-layer, I have to do, you guessed it, six-layer. Six-layer rhombic dodecahedron, which kind of brings me up to date with these dodecahedrons back over here. But this one just happens to not shapeshift. I don't have a six-layer or beyond, although they do exist. And if I'm going to do a six-layer, I'm going to do the whopping seven-layer rhombic dodecahedron. So large and so complex they couldn't even fit corner stickers because they kept falling off. But the concept is still exactly the same. Non-shape-shifting dodecahedron modded from 3x3, completing, for all intents and purposes, my series with this of dodecahedron modifications. So if we were to separate that back, so if we were to clump these together here, let's kind of get a wide shot on what we have here so far. Rhombic dodecahedrons, non-shape-shifting series over there. Shape-shifting dodecahedrons. Of course, you've got all of your cubes and the circles and whatnot. We've got our Megaminx series, and we've got our tetrahedral series. Might as well put this back where it belongs, over here. So basically I was getting pretty fascinated with the process of doing various series of various modifications, and I wanted to kind of continue on with this. If I were to take this and this, put it together, I'd end up with this over here, which looks like a pyramid, looks like it's a Pyramorphix, but acts exactly like a 3x3. It's a Pyramorphix, in this case a master Pyramorphix that shapeshifts and turns exactly like a 3x3, but looks for all intents and purposes like a Pyramorphix, like a pyramid. And of course there's the more pillowed version of it, which moves the same way, but maybe is a little bit more compact. Well, I really found this series pretty fascinating, and to be honest with you, I wanted to get a series just like that. Pyramorphix, which is a 2x2 version, not unlike this. Moves exactly the same way, solved exactly the same way. You just have to bear in mind it's got its own unique orientations. It is the 4-layer, and the 4-layer version was this. The Megamorphix. Not the Megaminx, but Megamorphix. Now this puzzle here introduced me to a guy named Trapum, and this was the first Trapum product that I got. And seeing how well crafted it was, and seeing how really well done it was, and the fact that it wasn't mass produced, made me want to go for other layer versions. If that's the 4-layer version, is there a 5-layer version? To which he said, sure, and he called it the Ultramorphix. So we have the Ultramorphix in here too, same kind of thing. It's a 5-layer modification that shapeshifts just like any 5-layer modification should. Okay, since we're on a roll, how about the 6-layer version? And of course, you guessed it, if there's the Ultramorphix, there's the brilliant hexaphobic puzzle, which is getting more and more complex. And because it's an even layer puzzle, you have to deal with all of the parities. If there's a 6-layer version, then you better believe there's a 7-layer version of it as well, which I don't think really has so much of a name, but here it is anyway. The 7-layer version. Septophobic, perhaps? I don't know. Anyway, 7-layer version, and if there's a 7-layer version, then of course there's going to be an 8-layer version, which is the massive octophobic puzzle, which moves very smoothly, among the smoothest puzzles that I have, something I enjoy solving. When getting modifications, I find that the smoothness of the puzzle enhances the enjoyment more so than even just the craftsmanship. We also have some actually collector's items here too. I've got a couple of these here that I might end up giving away, who knows. Hence came one type, which is as typified by this, a hexagonal dipyramid. So what is a hexagonal dipyramid, and why was that so fascinating to me? But imagine taking a 3x3 and basically cutting it down, shaving it down so that you have these false sides. So here's one side, and here's another side over here. Raphael Geluni went ahead and made a 2x2 version of that for me. So this was a 2x2, once again, shapeshifter, hexagonal dipyramid. There's a 4-layer version. Raphael was good enough to take the 4-layer version and basically made me a super cube version of it. So it's got the circles in here as well, and of course it's never fallen apart on me. So good job, Raphael. Anyway, we'll put this in an honorary position over here, but of course we can get a 5-layer version of it, 5x5 version, made from a V5, I believe, VQ 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5-layer version, and then to make matters even more complicated, a 6-layer version. This is among my favorite of mods just because it's so smooth moving. This one I did a layer by layer solve, but 6-layer version. And if I'm going to do that, I might as well come out with the whopping 7-layer version of this. So this 7-layer version takes its place over here, and we might as well pan out on that with the fantastic hexagonal dipyramids. Once again, made by taking a 3x3 and chopping it down. Then I take these false sides over here, keep them as false sides, and then build them up into, once again, a cube form. What would I end up with? Well, what I would end up with is something called an axis cube. Now what's interesting about this is a 3x3 mod that was taken as a cube, modded down to a different shape, built up once again as a cube. So it's a cube to cube modification. And although this is a 3x3, 1, 2, 3, it now looks far removed from its 3x3 parent cube. This was hacked down to this to make this. This was then built up as a cube once again to make this guy. And once doing that, the center was built out to these, and then these edges and corners are built out as well. So what you have is a cube, once again, but instead of turning on the face, it seems to turn on the axis. And each one of these sides are not face turning, but axis turning over here. So because of the similarities there, I figured, well, let's get a whole series of these guys. So we went back to a 2x2 version, as typified by this, really fun puzzle, well put together, again, solved just like a 2x2. Then of course you've got to get the 4x4 version, and then you can turn it, shapeshift it, just have a grand old time with this. So if I'm going to have a 4-layer version of it, then of course we need a 5-layer version, which is this guy over here. Once again retaining its cube form. Now this one is among my favorites as well, leading to this 6-layer hexagonal dipyramid. Now this one is a bear, because as you scramble this, it gives you a very unique axis look to it, very difficult to wrap your head around, and it's got all the parodies that exist with this. Parodies, false equivocations, all of these things. Among the more challenging of the modifications, and this will take its rightful place over here. Well, let's go back to our 3-layer and ask the question, what would happen if I take this and then I move it off to the side, chop it down, and turn it back into a cube? Well, what I'd have is among the most difficult of modifications, which is this guy, the ghost cube. Well, so too with this, these guys can turn, but I can't turn here anywhere. To make this turn, you have to turn it off center here, and then there we go, you can make it turn. We'll start off with a 2-layer axis cube, rather a ghost cube. So 2, you can see that once again it can turn over here, but I can't turn it any other way unless I put it right off kilter, and then I'm free to do that. So these are among the most difficult of modifications because there's no colored stickers to guide you, and you actually have to solve it off center and then bring it back with the final step. So 2-layer, 3-layer. Of course, there has to be a 4-layer version of this. This is among the more difficult of the modifications because you also deal with all the parodies that happen with this. Pretty crazy. 4-layer and then 5-layer. There is no 6-layer as of yet, but I'm sure that's around the horizon. But until then, this kind of gives the picture with this. So you have multiple layers of solving in isolation. Again, one of the more difficult of modifications. Certainly of the cube-to-cube modifications. So 6-layer. Well, what if as an experiment, I took this ghost portion and I once again took this cube and shaved it down as a hexagonal dipyramid? Then I would get, well, a ghost hexagonal dipyramid. So pretty much like a 3x3 ghost cube, solved the same way, same level of difficulty pretty much, but in this case it's solved into a form of a hexagonal dipyramid. So it kind of takes that theme to the extreme. Get this back into unless I accidentally scrambled it. But we'll get this back into its form. There it is. Okay. Now what if I took an axis cube like this and turned this into a hexagonal dipyramid? Not make it into a ghost cube first, then I'd have the axis hexagonal dipyramid. So once again, another shape mod, but just kind of an interesting variation on that theme. I'll put this into the hexagonal dipyramid area right over there. There's something fascinating about taking a puzzle and turning it into a lower numbered side version of that. For instance, I could take a 3x3 and I can shave it down to one of these guys, a Master Pyramorphix. what is to this as this is to this? Well, if I take this down and shave it down from a 6-sided puzzle to a 4-sided puzzle, could I take a 12-sided puzzle and shave it down to a 6-sided puzzle? Turn a dodecahedron and shave it down to a cube shape, in which case, although it would look like a cube, it would still function as a dodecahedron. That, of course, is the hexaminx. So the hexaminx, although it looks like a cube, it turns what appears to be on its axis like this, but it's really not. This is actually a megaminx. As you can see, this is the center here, here's the center over here, and then we have edge, 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 corner, 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 corner. So this was the first modification of a dodecahedron, an actual megaminx dodecahedron that I got. And because it is a modification, it shapeshifts. So it's a dodecahedron that actually shapeshifts. So this is what happens when, once again, you take a higher order shape and take it down to a lower order shape. But why stop there? If I could take this and shave it down by an order of sides, from a cube to a triangle, what if I took a dodecahedron to a cube? Could I further shave this down to a tetrahedron, a triangle? In other words, what is the triangular version of this? And that would be this guy, the RL minx. The RL minx is basically this, but chopped further down into a tetrahedron. So this is a 4-sided puzzle that looks like a pyramid, but actually moves pretty much the same way. So if you can solve a megaminx, then you can solve a hexaminx. If you can solve a hexaminx, you can solve this RL minx, and you can see the similarities here. That here's the center here, here's our star center over here, and there's our center over here. And then end up with a nice little triad like this, from dodecahedron to hexaminx to RL minx. Then what about a cubic version of a gigaminx? What if I chop this one down? Well, then I would have the giga hexaminx, this big guy over here. This is equivalent to this, which is the higher order layer version of this. And I couldn't help but complete a series like that. See if we can't make this make sense over here. But in this one, once again, it shapeshifts, but it shapeshifts in multiple layers. Takes a little bit of getting used to regarding the structure, but once you do, it's not difficult to make the proper turns and make the proper motions that you have to. Once again, a fascinating and fun puzzle, and surely something worthy of a collection that I was slowly building and slowly expanding into. So as I'm gazing upon this landscape that I'm building, ever expanding dodecahedrons, tetrahedrons, cubes, giant cubes, supercubes, rhombic dodecahedrons, Pyramorphix puzzles, morphings puzzles, shape-shifting dodecahedrons, and then our cousins over here, the axis cubes, the hexagonal dipyramidal puzzles, and the ghost cubes. Maybe I'll put that across over here. I found myself getting more and more comfortable with shapeshifters, more and more comfortable with modifications. And as such, I was ready to move into an area that I had always been fascinated with, but now found myself ready to go into. This was an area that was to revolutionize my entire concept of what my collection would be, and my entire approach to puzzle solving and problem solving as well. This is where I was going to get into the territory of cuboids.